Hi, this is John again, the owner and developer of VectorDecks. In this tutorial, we're going to discuss how you can design your rails on your Sun deck with a process I call Use Rail Objects. Now I'm going to start this tutorial where we left off with the custom rail settings tutorial and created this particular rail design custom settings. So what we're going to do is go ahead and click on the frame, and in the Frames Object Information palette, go ahead and click on that Sun Deck rail settings again. And as you see, this is the rail that's currently in the document, and that's the rail we designed, entering different dimensions and applying different textures within that custom settings. We dabbled a little bit with Use Rail Objects when we inserted that center pattern. When you clicked on Rail Objects, the only option you had with the custom settings was to insert a particular pattern in the center. In fact, while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. But once you click on that Use Rail Objects, it overtakes any custom settings that you've placed, and it's going to work on whatever objects you select in these different menus for the post objects and for the rail objects. Now, as you see, they're grayed out now, but we're going to go ahead and click on that Use Rail Objects, and immediately it replaced the rail that we designed with the objects that are set in here as the defaults. Now, until you click OK to apply the changes on the rails in the document, you could still have your default custom settings. So I'm going to click those Use Rail Objects off, and you see it'll default back to the custom settings. But let's work with these Use Rail Objects. I'm going to go ahead and click to apply this, and you'll see it'll default and change to whatever objects we've selected in its menus. Using rail objects is a really powerful way of designing your rails. The only limits you'll have is what parts or what components are available to you in those menus. Let me show you. Go ahead and click on the Sun Deck frame again and go to Sun Deck Railing Settings. While I'm here, I'll show you if you ever click that Use Rail Objects off again, it's going to default to your previous settings. But we're going to use Rail Objects. The only two menus you're going to be involved in is the post and the actual rail objects. So let's go to post first. I only have a couple of options here, a 4x4 post or a 6x6 post. Now you'll be able to design different kind of rails or posts yourself, and once they're placed in there, you'll have access to it. We have a collar for a 4x4 or a sleeve for a 4x4 or 6x6, the different caps, the different skirt. Default class or coloration is none, which gives this white effect, but you have the ability here to go in and define all these different parts to be all one color. Like I can make these white, and all the parts will be white. I'll show you here how if we change this to, let's say, pressure treated, it's going to change the posts and all the little different parts to whatever the master color here up top is. Parts, these are made to fit in, become the railing system piece by piece. And I have just a few options here. I have a top rail that's simple, a smaller one for like an iron railing effect, a fancier one. Let's go ahead and select this one here. It's got a lot more detail to it. You're going to see it got updated in this preview window here. The same is true with the bottom rail. Let's go ahead and give it a more detailed finish bottom rail. It'll show you these cross sections so you know what's going on. In the pickets, let's go ahead and let's go and put a spindle picket in here. I'm going to select that. It'll again show you. Now these colors are set at none, and they appear to be white, but that's VectorWorks will shade a non-color, a solid, like a solid white. Let's go ahead and make all these also a white finish. Now you can go in and give each component a different color, or you can go to the top and assign all the different classes the same color. Now once you're satisfied with all the objects that you've selected, as long as you haven't clicked OK, you can always go back to their defaults, but we're going to go ahead and apply this to the drawing. Now it's going to take it a little while longer. I have it set here to OpenGL, But it's going to take just a little while to draw all those little turned spindles throughout the railing system. And as you see here, the rails throughout the entire deck has picked up that spindle. And that's because we had each rail insertion in the steps use deck info was turned on. There's a lot of detail involved in that step. Let me zoom in and give you a good look. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of work that would be involved in trying to draw all these angles. And in step tutorial, you'll see where you can make some changes in your rise and run, and it automatically will draw everything correctly. Now, you're still going to have some custom edit capabilities when you're using rail objects. That has to do with the spans of your post and your picket maximum on centers and stuff. Well, let's go there and I could show you what I'm talking about. Go ahead and go back to the Sundeck rail settings. And in that first window, it's showing you the use rail objects views, but you can control, for example, the post. You could change this, and the on centers or the post spans will be adjusted to that. You can also tighten in the railing. Let's make this 2 inches. That's pretty tight, but I just want to give you an example. I'll go ahead and apply this, and you'll see you'll have a whole slew of pickets there. So you do have a little bit of custom capability of making some changes. As far as components, they're pretty much fixed. I could show you an example here. You could change this rail to 42 inches, and it'll move the top rail up, but the pickets themselves selected in here the 36-inch spindle. Now if we wanted it to be 42, then obviously you would select a 42-inch spindle. When I constructed all the different picket options I currently have, I always did two, one for 36 and one for 42, so it's something to keep in mind. While I'm in here, let's go ahead and make another picket change. Go ahead and select this fancy curved flat iron type of baluster, and then give it a black finish. Now, even though these are all selected to be white, you still have the capability of going in and making a manual change to any of the components. And then also let's install this fancy little center pattern. And as I explained in the custom settings, you have the option to select which one to insert that in, or you can click here and that particular pattern will be inserted in all the different rail spans. Let's also make that black. There we go. Now we're going to go ahead and install this by just clicking OK. And your rail will get updated with that railing change. It's a real neat feature if you're in front of your customer and you want to show them, well, this is what your deck's going to look like with this rail, or this is what it looks like with these little center objects. Now, you didn't have to spend a whole lot of time drawing it. You just needed to make certain selections and click on different parts, and you were able to produce that quickly, on the fly. Now, we were able to do all this only utilizing the VectorDecks frame tool. By adding the controls that you normally would have in all the rails, or you still have in all the rails and the steps, I also have those in this Sundeck rail settings. So that way, when you have your use deck info checked, when you're inserting all these different components, you can just go in and make those Sundeck rail design changes, and they'll update everything in your deck much quicker than it would be if you had to go to each component and try to create that on your own. The only limitations you'll have when using use rail objects over the custom settings is going to be the actual objects and parts available to you in those menus. Now, we have a few in there. We're going to show you in a tutorial how you can add your own custom settings, but also we'll be in touch with some railing manufacturers and getting their specs right down to their part numbers and colors and appearance and everything, and we'll have that available to you right within the VectorDecks tool set. That way you'll be able to insert the actual part number, the real world part, right down to its specifications.